Hey everyone, another semi-professional here, and it's time for the Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 2 review. It's going to be a faster review this time, guys. It won't be a full half-hour breakdown. We're going to try and get through everything, just try and speed through it. So let's get straight into it, guys. The episode starts with Jaime Lannister, kind of under a lot of pressure here. He's in the hall at Winterfell, being questioned mostly by Daenerys, but by the entire, the North are really not trusting him as well. He has just arrived in Winterfell. Dany speaks about how her and her brother spoke about the man who killed her father, watched him die, and what they would do if they ever got him again. Things don't look too good for Jaime. Tyrion tries to intercede, but we do find out that Cersei isn't coming to the north, and this does anger Daenerys, and she kind of cuts Tyrion off, saying that he's as wrong about his brother as he was about his sister potentially. So this really doesn't give Tyrion much of a leg to stand on. However, it's when Brienne of Tarth steps forward and vouches for Jaime. Sansa doesn't deny Brienne here. She trusts Brienne with her life, and if Brienne is willing to trust Jaime with her life in turn, then that's enough for Sansa, and Sansa's willing to allow him into the camp. As for Jon Snow, he kind of sits on the fence here and just basically says we need every living person we can to defend against the dead, which is also true. They may have to deal with him later, but for now, Jaime's given a free pass. However, there is one character in the hall who has a cutting remark that only him and Jaime know about, and that, of course, is Bran. The things we do for love, Bran says to him as Jaime is explaining how he was defending his house's honor and he'd do it all again. However, now it's more than loyalty. He needs to defend the living. This is for survival. But Bran does see through everything, man. And that does lead us to our next image here of, Jaime and Bran having a kind of a quiet one-to-one. Jaime does ask Bran why he didn't tell everyone, and Bran, quite simply and logically says, they'd have murdered you before you could help us. And obviously Bran knows that Jaime is important in the battle coming ahead, which, Bran would know, but other people may not. If Jaime was of no importance, it would have been of little consequence to Bran not to just get him out of the way and have him murdered earlier, but clearly he sees that Jaime being important and decides to keep him around. Of course, Jaime has more interactions than with just Bran. He meets Brienne as well. We'll come to that right away. But the last thing that Bran says to Jaime, which is very interesting, he basically says to him, Jaime says, what about afterwards? You didn't turn me in now, but what about after? And Bran just says, how are you so sure that there's going to be an after? And, we don't know, but the viewers don't know. So many times we see reveals of characters, like Jon's lineage being told to him. We all knew, but he didn't know. But for this one, when Bran says that, how do you know there's going to be an after? This is one of the few occasions where us as the viewer as well really don't know. We assume someone will survive, but who? So like I said, Jaime and Brienne then they will meet as well, and Brienne kind of questions why he isn't mocking her or why he isn't his usual self, and Jaime just says, I'm not the man I used to be, not the fighter I used to be, but I'd be honored to serve under you. And this kind of hits Brienne because I'm not sure she knows how to handle the fact that she may have some feelings for Jaime, but that kind of just continues their arc and their interest in one another and their respect for one another, really, and admiration of one another. But Jaime will be serving under Brienne. We discovered that Brienne is leading the left flank. It's meant to be good ground. However, I'm not sure if there is any good ground against the dead, but they will have a bit of a hill and an advantage if they can kind of keep the dead at bay. This hopefully will keep those people alive, but anyone out in the field fighting, I don't hold out much hope for those people. But this is the second time we've seen Brienne in an important part of this episode, and it really is a really, really big Brienne episode. It's really a big everyone episode, but I feel that for me the core character was Brienne in this episode, and this is the second time we see her being of importance. First saving Jaime, and then second taking him into her regiment that will defend the left flank at Winterfell. We'll move on now to utter backlash following that meeting in the hall of Winterfell. Dany was furious. She and on the way out of the hall, walking in the corridors, basically tells Tyrion that he won't be the hand much longer if he keeps making mistakes. Varys just stays very quiet in this episode. Don't even think he has a single speaking line, but he stays in the background. We see him floating around. He'll be in the crypts later, hiding out. But Jorah does step forward back to the forefront here. he had faded away and lost Dany's fate a bit, but he healed himself, came back, and she does care for him, and he's welcomed back into her council, and he does give great counsel here. He actually defends Tyrion, the man who took his position as Hand, and says that she needs to forgive him, and Daenerys is quite perplexed by this, saying, you're defending the man whose spot you'd like to have, probably. But he says he is, because of his mind. Tyrion may run his mouth a lot, but he has a very, very sharp mind, and yes, he's made mistakes, but he's owning them, and he says that she should forgive him, and that's, fair play, Jorah. Great part of the episode. Jorah then goes on to have a second bit of great advice. He counsels Dany to start building relationships with Sansa, because those two need to get along. When all of this fighting is over and there's no dead to focus on, should the living prevail, then it's going to be come to a head between the Targaryen and the Starks in the north, who want freedom. So, build these relationships while you're still in alliance, while you're early. The counsel Jorah is giving is super wise counsel. Two other things from Jorah we'll get out of the way. One, he gets Hearthbane later on from Sam Tarly, and two, he meets his cousin, leader of House Mormont, Lady Mormont, who just continues to be a badass. This girl is awesome. He basically is trying to advise her to go into the crypts, and she's having none of it, and says she'll be out there fighting like every other sworn fighter and protector of the living. Lady Mormont is awesome. Just really like everything they do with her. Basically, is just great. But going back to Daenerys then, and following the counsel from Jorah, she goes and speaks with Sansa, and they actually have a really good meeting, and we kind of get a lot of ice broken between the two. I mean, they speak about the fact that they've overcome so much, kind of it being a man's world, and them having to overcome that as women and basically take power and respect and earn it, and they've both done that to great degrees of success. However, they've had to go through quite a lot of difficulty and struggle to get there, but they have gotten there, and they kind of are bonding over that. And then she brings up Jon, and Sansa brings forward her main concern here is that she feels that Jon could be getting manipulated. Men do stupid things for love, she says. That's true. But then I guess Dany reassures her that who's manipulating who. She was going straight for King's Landing, take the Iron Throne. That was her mission. Now she's here half a world away, fighting Jon's battle, fighting the dead for him, because she loves him. And I think Sansa has a smile at this, and she's kind of knowing that it's a bit of a 50-50 pull between Jon and Daenerys here, which she can kind of respect more. However, and it's going great. We're like, oh, awesome. Sansa and Daenerys on the same page could be a super powerful alliance. But it ends with a bit of a caveat where, Sansa says, what about the North, and what happens next? And Daenerys says, well, she'll take the Iron Throne and rule the Seven Kingdoms. But Sansa wants to point out that the North is currently independent of the Seven Kingdoms and wants to remain that way. They don't want to bend the knee ever again. They're a proud people. That gets interrupted, so we don't get a conclusion to that, and that's kind of something that happens in this episode. The big storylines get brought up, but we're not going to get a conclusion, I guess, until after the battle with the dead now. But at least we have these things set up and some bridges being built. But they get interrupted because Theon is there and wants to join the battle. And they have a nice moment here. Dany doesn't really know much about him. He knew him from the Greyjoys with Yara, who she respected. However, Theon, is still alive, and he comes back, and she realizes there's actually a strong connection between the Greyjoys and the Starks. And they find out that Yara is sailing back to take back the Iron Islands, which hopefully will be somewhere for them to run to should they lose the upcoming battle, because that might still happen. But Theon is now back in the fold. Him and some of his Iron Men are going to serve in the fight ahead, which just bolsters the ranks and kind of gets Curry's good favour between the Greyjoys again with the Starks, as they had lost quite a lot over the years. Moving along then, we see everyone, kind of all the main figures and all the leaders in the kind of the planning room, shall we say, the war room, discussing how they're going to deal with things and how they're going to set up. And we do see this on the outside too, where they're building spike walls to try and keep the dead back, and putting some dragonglass shards up along the walls of Winterfell as a deterrent to anyone climbing up, maybe making a pile of dead bodies, kind of World War Z style, where they're going to climb over the walls. That could happen yet, who knows. But they're basically planning things out and how it's going to happen. And we have a great moment here where Bran kind of reveals something that I think should have been revealed earlier, and everyone needs to focus more on Bran, but I'm not sure how many people take him knowing things seriously, or him being the three-eyed raven seriously. They need to realize that if there's an army of the dead happening there, maybe take Bran more seriously when he says he's a three-eyed raven that can see everything. As much as you might not think it's true, it's clearly true. Bran says that the Night King is coming for him. They all think that the Night King is their best, well, Jon says that the Night King is their best target. However, No one thinks that he will reveal himself, or Jaime definitely mentioned that, and I think people agree. But Bran says he will reveal himself in order to get his hands on Bran. His mission overall is to destroy the living and remove mankind. And in order to do that, you need to remove the memory of them being stored within the Three-Eyed Raven. So that's what Bran is. Bran is the bastion of humanity now as the Three-Eyed Raven. He is saying that while he has the memory of everything, and as Sam then, I suppose, elaborates on, as long as they keep their memories and keep their civility about them, that they're still men and not just animals, or mankind, at least, men and women. But we see the plans here that, we also get a kind of a worrying thing here. In the mission room, they're going to be holding the dragons back to protect Bran from the Night King, not really letting them launch forward. So the pro to holding dragons back is, as we've already seen, the dragons can be killed with these ice spears. So launching the dragons forward to attack the army of the dead straight away might risk the dragons being taken by the dead, which would be a huge blow to lose any more dragons. But two, the con being that now the living have to fight way out less firepower than they used to have, literally and figuratively. We saw before that dragons can wipe out armies now, can wipe out literal armies, but I guess with those ice spears being a possibility, maybe holding them back isn't the worst thing, but it definitely reduces their firepower against the dead in the upcoming battle and makes the possibility of a lot more people dying a reality that's almost certainly going to happen now. So that scene leads us out from there, and we just kind of keep moving on. There is kind of then during the daytime still another scene where Missandei and Grey Worm have a meeting. Missandei is just walking around and saying hi to the children, and they're a bit frightened of her, and two little girls run away. These would be very, very small kind of country town people, I guess, that who are now seeking amnesty and shelter at Winterfell. They're not really Winterfell people. But it's great to kind of see common people, and the fact that they're afraid about this upcoming war, but also afraid of strange people that they don't really know. It does touch on with the show, the element of people in the north wouldn't know people from other lands, and there's hints of racism here where people might be afraid of outsiders. The North would be generally distrusting of most other people. We see them spitting on the ground for the Lannisters, so it's not necessarily race, it's more the fact that you're a stranger from the outside. But there is hints of it in the case of Missandei and Grey Worm, maybe, where you would say that people are unsure of them or just not knowing how to handle with them, so they just kind of hide away or shy away from them. And then Grey Worm discusses this with Missandei, saying that there's nothing really here for them. He obviously is loyal to Daenerys and will fight her fights, and once she has succeeded and is on the Iron Throne, I think he's going to ask her for leave and take, he's going to try and take Missandei away from her and take them back to the beaches and to their homelands. It's basically just live out their days there, being happy together, and no longer in a land of strangers who don't necessarily welcome them with open arms. It's a nice little scene. It just shows that what they're planning to do after this, should they survive. But Grey Worm surviving the battle with the dead, who knows? He survived plenty of fights, but this could be a tough one. Hopefully he'll get through it. Moving on from that nice scene, we move on to another big plot point here, being Arya. So first of all, we have Arya meeting with the Hound and Beric Dondarrion, which is a great bit as well. But they just have a nice meeting as well, and the Hound talking about how she used to be able to shut up, and now she's a mute. They do talk about Beric having been on the list before, but I thought there was going to be more of a thing there where Arya, when she saw him, would try and do something about it. But it looks like she's going to let that one slide, at least until after the dead are gone, and possibly for good. And eventually she just leaves them there and says she doesn't want to spend any more time with those two miserable shits. So that's fine. She goes and finds Gendry, and they're talking in the forge, about the weapons, and she is being badass about it, which is great earlier in the episode, where she throws 3 arrowheads into the thing consistently, and then later in the episode she comes back and she gets her weapon, which looks like it's basically a Darth Maul and a two-sided lightsaber type thing with dragon glass, where it's possibly detachable as well. So it's basically going to be a double-edged blade that detaches into 2 different blades, and she is basically channeling her inner Syrio Forel. She is going to be the greatest swordsman, sword master, whatever you want to call it, in the land, and I think she is going to be clutch. And if anyone gets to the Night King, or gets through a lot of the White Walkers to get near the Night King, I think Arya is possibly going to be the furthest, basically because her skill level with a sword far exceeds anyone else. everyone else is really powerful and, you know, good fighters, but Arya is skillful. She is dexterous to a very high degree now. She's a super skilled ninja at this point, and I think she can do an awful lot of damage with the right kind of weaponry and can possibly cut through a lot of people during this upcoming fight. So I think she's going to do an awful lot of damage, which should be good. However, her and Gendry get together basically as she finds out that Gendry is the bastard son of Robert Baratheon. I don't think this changes anything about her feelings towards Gendry. They were already set. So this is just nice information for her to have. But then she starts asking him all this stuff about, you know, how many women he's been with and things like that, which is kind of an awkward, weird, funny kind of scene. You know, Gendry doesn't know how to deal with it, but he's acting like a guy who's kind of being super defensive. He says he's been with 3 girls, but rule of 3 means Gendry's probably been with 1 other girl. Now 2, though, because he does get with Arya after that, which is cool. I think it's nice for them. We've all thought that they would get together. It's nice that it's finally happened. And a Stark Baratheon, should they guys stay together and they both survive, Stark Baratheon would be quite a powerful alliance if Gendry can claim his Baratheon heritage. He is the last surviving heir, I believe, that has, you know, proof of lineage. I'm assuming there's a lot of other bastards out there who are Baratheons, but Gendry would probably have the highest claim at this point. So if he was able to claim the Baratheon lands and titles, and with Arya by his side, they would be strong rulers. But we'll go back to who this episode I feel is most about, and that is Brienne. Like I said at the start, she's a very core person in this episode. You know, she's going to be leading the left flank. She's got the whole Jaime situation going on. The awkwardness with Tormund is great. We have where they all meet in the hall, you know, this just amazing scene where they're all getting together. Tyrion, Jaime, Pod, Brienne, Tormund is there, Davos is there, and it's just a really fun scene where they're all kind of drinking and just, you know, preparing for the war ahead. And Tormund has the funniest moment again in the episode where he talks about why he's called Giant's Bane and Giant's Milk scene. It's just so funny. He had the funniest line in the last episode about the blue eyes, and now again with this, I think Tormund is just having so much fun with that character, and it's just great. A really, really funny episode. Whenever he's in the scene, it's fun. Even the way he grabbed Jon when Jon was meeting Ed earlier on in the episode, when they finally get to Winterfell, it's just great. But Brienne again having so much good stuff, and then we find out that she's no longer Lady Brienne, she is now Sir Brienne. Really great scene towards the end of all that, where Jaime is willing to knight her. They talk about tradition, and then Jaime goes ahead and breaks tradition and knights her, and it's deserving. I mean, no other character has exemplified, you know, the traits that Jaime describes as a knight more than Brienne. More than any knight we saw in King's Landing by a mile, even more than Jon Snow. Brienne is the most honorable person. You know, Jon is honorable, but he's doing things for his brothers in the Night's Watch. He was doing things for his family in Winterfell, you know, in the north, and protecting people. But Brienne wasn't from their lands. When she made a promise to Catelyn Stark even, she just there was a person that, you know, she didn't need to follow through on that. No one else knew that promise was made, but honor bound, so she was, and everything she has done since is because she has been honor bound the whole time. And when she says screw honor to Jaime, that really hits home with him in the previous episode, because she is the most honorable person he knows, and she deserves a knighthood. Screw gender, she deserves a knighthood because of her. That's basically the person she is. Doesn't really matter, man or woman. I know there's a patriarchy that they're breaking here, and in the time it's set in, I guess if you're saying how it translates, this wouldn't have happened. But you know, in this moment, it is fitting because she deserves it more than any man that's ever been in the show, or any person that's been in the show. Let's not go man woman here. Any person that's been in the show, no one beats Brienne for how honorable they are. So this is a great moment. I think this is the highlight of the show for me. It's just a really good moment, and everyone knows that she deserves it, and the emotion comes true, and it's a really great continuation again of the arc and the respect and the admiration between Jaime and Brienne, and they should really get together. As much as Tormund will be heartbroken, Jaime and Brienne, I think, is a long-lasting potential relationship. One or two other things before we go on from here is, I don't have images for it, but John, Ed, and Sam have a funny conversation on the wall. We see Ghost again, which is great, because Ghost has been ghosting the show for a while now, but we do get to see him. He is there. He's going to be there for the upcoming battle. But they have a funny moment, you know, the three brothers of the Night's Watch, and Ed is just a really good line, and he says, "Last man alive, burn the rest," and it's just because they don't want to come back as dead. Which is just, yeah, it's a good line by Ed. And yeah, those three have a nice moment at the top of the wall. But then later on we see, Jon is with Dany in the crypt, and it's kind of, as it's cutting through all the characters, we see Sansa with Tion and other people, just, the Hound is with Beric, and they're just all people are spending their last few hours together. We see all the gang having the drink and the songs, Pod sing songs, all of that kind of stuff is going on, and people are spending their last night before the fight with the dead. Jon goes down to the crypt, and Dany goes down there to find him, because Jon throughout the episode was much more distant from Dany than he had been in the past, and she had noticed it. He had been cold and keeping his distance. She goes down to him in the crypt, and she asks whose statue it is he's in front of. He explains it's Lyanna Stark. Dany believes this is the woman that Rhaegar kidnapped and raped. However, Jon then comes forward and tells her a story that actually they were married in secret, and Jon is their son, not bastard, but legitimate son. He is Aegon Targaryen. This shocks Dany, and she says, well, that means you have a claim to the Iron Throne as the last male Targaryen heir. However, again, as Brienne just showed, being the male heir versus being the female heir, being a male knight versus being a female knight, I think we're setting as Dany says herself, we're breaking the wheel here, which is breaking that kind of patriarchy a little bit, because there's so many powerful women on the show. So hopefully that, it doesn't really matter if it's Jon or Dany necessarily. I think Dany has more followers at this point, and I think Jon doesn't want it. Jon would probably happily let her take that and just go on and do his own thing. But to her, this is a huge risk. I'm not sure how she's going to react, because they weren't given enough time for this to come to full resolution, because the horns were blowing and the dead were spotted, and we are kicking into a fight mode now. So the dead have arrived. We couldn't get a resolution to that moment. The White Walkers leading the army of the dead are here, and there are multiple things that are set up. Jon and Dany, how will that tension resolve? Will it resolve? Will it be a problem? Sansa and Dany, how will that tension resolve? We didn't really get an answer to how the North will be treated after this. Missandei and Grey Worm leaving. Arya and Gendry, if they survive, how will their relationship form? Jaime and Brienne, awesome. So many other characters, Tyrion, Bronn, Davos, Tormund, all great characters. Ed, Sam as well. It's just it's interesting to see how this is going to go now, but we're ready. Episode 2 was great. It was further build up. Episode 1 kind of gave us all of the reunions we needed to see. Episode 2 built plot, built suspense. We know what the plan is. Kill the Night King. Hopefully the rest will fall. We see all the people progressing their stories. Arya, basically continuing her relationships with the people she knows. Bran, Tyrion actually said something I didn't talk about. Tyrion does sit down and speak with Bran. We don't know how much information Tyrion got from Bran there, but if anyone was going to be an information gatherer and find out more about someone, Tyrion is the only person who takes Bran being the Tree of Raven very seriously, because he wants to know what Bran knows, which is great because Bran knows everything, and Tyrion likes to drink and know things too. So it's good that Tyrion gets to kind of have that conversation with Bran, and hopefully people will start taking Bran more seriously. They've run out of time now. They're going to have to fight the dead, but whoever survives this, if anyone survives it, hopefully they can take on Bran more seriously, get more information from him, and just kind of maybe he's kind of hopefully going to be someone who is an architect of the future for them by being someone who knows all about the past and is able to kind of hopefully people can learn from those past mistakes, and that's a way of humanizing Bran more, because he's very robotic at the moment, but for him to kind of be more humanized will be as a architect of how things can be done or should not be done from the past maybe. Yeah, but everything's built up now. The next episode is going to be fight, and let's just hope our favorite characters survive. But I just think it's impossible to think that everyone survives. So many characters are good up there that I've just mentioned in the last few minutes, and it's basically, I don't think, possible for them to come through everyone surviving. I mean, this is the big bad. Whatever about Cersei and her army in the south that they have coming up before the end of season. These guys are going to take some scalps. You can't just kill the dead with no casualties, because it would kind of undermine the threat that they were all along if everyone was to survive that. I mean, they're a massive army, and yeah, now the dragon classes put things in their favor. Dragons can put things in their favor, but there is an undead dragon now that can kill a lot of the living. So a lot will die, but in terms of main characters and the 1%, who knows? But it's good. We've seen some of the commoners. There's a moment with Davos Seaworth where there's a commoner saying, "I'm not a soldier, sir." So we've seen the 1% and their struggle throughout Game of Thrones, but there are thousands of people who are dying and trying to live through this as well, and a lot more of them are going to die in this upcoming battle. But out of that 1% we're following in the show, how many of those will die? Yeah, a handful for sure. I would guess. I'm not looking forward to it. I hope that most survive, but I think it's impossible to expect all to survive. That just really wouldn't wouldn't really work. We're going to have it culling. So, guys, thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Please click that like button. Please click subscribe below if you've enjoyed my content. From the first episode to this, I'm hoping that the image quality is better. I'm hoping that the sound quality is better. I'm trying to get better at this all the time. Please leave comments below if you have any particular advice or feedback that you want to give. That's great. Or if you just like my content and want to give your own opinion on the show itself, that'd be great too, guys. Episode 3 review coming this time next week. Hope you all, can wait because I can't. And I will see you all in the next video.